Salutations everybody, it is Matty here today with a Bethesda news update. We have not talked about these bad boys on the channel in a good while, and we finally can because they have announced their BE3 2018 showcase. I'm here to give you guys all the details on that, followed up by my speculation on what I feel we will see at BE3 2018. So this was announced via a video on Twitter with the caption, "We're excited to bring everyone into the fold of what we're working on. Join us live for our 2018 BE3 showcase on Sunday, June 10th at 6:30 p.m. Pacific time." So yes, once again, BE3 is going to be hosted on a Sunday. It's going to start off E3. It's going to start before everyone else. The hope is that this isn't as lackluster as BE3 2017 was, where it looked like Bethesda merely did not have enough to show. So hopefully after a year, Bethesda has learned that they need to come out with the big guns or just stay home. There was a lot of fan disappointment. I think Bethesda heard it loud and clear despite how great Wolfenstein 2 was and how enjoyable The Evil Within 2 was. It didn't feel like enough to support an E3 conference. This year, however, I think is going to be a little bit different. I don't say that as an optimist, but it's always been easy to narrow down what Bethesda does at E3 based merely off development cycles. We knew that it was going to start off in 2015 with easily Fallout 4 merely because of the fact that it was the big one. It was the first one. There were nice surprises like Doom and the announcement of Dishonored 2, but Dishonored 2 didn't get a lot of the limelight because it was going to release in fall of 2016, where at E3 2016, it did get its big spotlight, which was simply predicted. In 2017, based off leaks and also, once again, development cycles, considering that in 2014, Wolfenstein 1 and The Evil Within 1 had launched, that 2017 would feature both those games, and wouldn't you know it, E3 2017's biggest spotlights were The Evil Within 2 and Wolfenstein 2, The New Colossus. So I have this strong gut feeling that come E3 2018 for Bethesda, that we're going to have things come full circle. Now, before I dive into things coming full circle and what exactly I think those are, I want to cover what I believe is shoo-ins for the E3 2018 conference by Bethesda, and that's stuff like, obviously, Elder Scrolls Online. We're probably going to see an update for that game. It's still pretty popular. It's still getting support from fans, so I imagine we're going to see an update or something to increase the popularity and player base of that game, and more so, the typical beginning of the show that Bethesda has to remind people that things exist, like also Elder Scrolls Legends. I'm sure there'll be a mini expansion for that just to hopefully breathe some life into that game. Understandable, of course, but the issue was in 2017, that was all Bethesda's show. For about 30 minutes, it was all this type of little stuff that really held no weight, and we thought they were holding back for one big reveal, and that never really happened. I'm sure the other thing that will remind us that exists is Quake Champions, which is a very fast-paced game also by id, and perhaps with all the guest characters they've been doing like BJ Blazkowicz, the Doom Marine, I'm sure maybe we'll see another Bethesda character guest in on that game. I think that'd be a cool little tie-in. But after that, I think it'll get a little bit more exciting. I do imagine that if Bethesda starts out the show this way, there'll be some initial frustrations. Once again, this boils down to whether or not they've learned from last year, but regardless, I think things are going to improve when we see, hopefully, some Prey DLC, much like Arcane's Dishonored Death of the Outsider, which was one of my favorite Dishonored games in the series. I really like that a lot, and I feel Prey's going to get the similar treatment thanks to a tweet that the Prey account sent out, hinting at what I believe is, hilariously enough, Moon DLC. This has been a meme of my friend Monty's for a while, and now all of a sudden it actually may come true after a year, and I can't just help but laugh at that. With that said though, I really did enjoy Prey. The only thing I had a major gripe with was the ending. I thought they didn't handle choice and consequence all that well, so I'm really crossing my fingers that they have learned some lessons from that part of the game and that they improve on that in a new Prey expansion. With that said though, I'm still down for more Prey. I really did like that game a lot. And speaking of DLC, I do think we'll see a little bit more from Wolfenstein 2. I know that they've been gradually rolling out Wolfenstein 2 DLC. I don't know if there will be more for planned after E3. I suppose it really depends on how successful this DLC is, but I think it might be a safe bet to imagine that we'll see more Wolfenstein 2 there, considering how well this game did both commercially and critically. But most importantly, what I think all of us have been crossing our fingers for the past couple of years is a Bethesda Game Studios game. And I do imagine that's something we will see at this E3 conference. It's been 3 years since Fallout 4 come fall this year, and we've seen a lot of information gradually dribble out about what Bethesda Game Studios is doing. There's the infamous interview with Todd Howard that has become a goldmine at this point, talking about 3 big and crazy projects. Allow me to remind you of the quote there. We actually have 3 kind of longer term projects we're doing that are all, we'll talk about them at a future date, but they're different than anything we've done before, while also being a Bethesda style game, he said, as reported by Video Games 24/7. Big and crazy, but in many ways different than things we've done before. It's an exciting time. Now, this was a decent amount of time ago, and this was followed up by news that came out just in the middle of last year that Bethesda Game Studios was hiring for a AAA freemium game that was also listed as a bleeding edge title, meaning that they're trying to push the boundaries on technology and whatever they can. This very much sounds like one of the big and crazy projects that's very different from what Bethesda has done. They're known for their single player open world RPGs that are very engrossing, that are exploration friendly, and all of a sudden we're seeing now hirings for a bleeding edge AAA freemium game. I'm not surprised that Bethesda wants to get in on what seems to be a growing trend of games that are very fun to play and are supported by microtransactions, because they actually end up making way more money in the long run, and I'm thinking that's what Bethesda finds so appealing about that. With that said though, the allure of a Bethesda style game that's still a freemium, I'm very curious exactly what they're aiming for with that. But speculation aside, I think this is the year we find out what Bethesda Game Studios has been working on. Does it release this year? I'm not 100% sure on that, but I really do believe this is the year we get a trailer, an announcement, or a big detailed discussion by Todd Howard of some way, shape, or form at this E3. I think it's very important that they do that because Bethesda has had the time and space. There really hasn't been anyone breathing down their necks like they did with Fallout 4, where it could be a good time for them to come out and talk about it. Now, I'm just imagining that, let's say this game is announced and it isn't coming out this year. What would be the big home run game to come out this year? I've always felt like 2018 would be a good year for a Fallout spinoff. It would shock me beyond words if we had not seen a new Fallout game until whenever Bethesda Game Studios got around to developing one. I truly believe there's going to be a Fallout spinoff sooner rather than later. I think 2018 will be a year for that. The reason I say that is merely because of sales. I know it's relatively simple and I know I've mentioned it before, but come on, Fallout 4 sold so well, and the idea of another Fallout coming out this year while we have information about a Bethesda Game Studios game, I think would be a good combination to let fans leave happier than they did last year, because I think Bethesda does have some ground to make up, that fans are sometimes okay with just information. I mean, hell, EA's been doing it for freaking years, and it would be cool if just Todd Howard came out on the stage and said, you know what, here's a little trailer, here's some information about our game, we'll have more to talk about later on, but for now we just want to let you know here's what's going on. With that said, that does go a little bit against the philosophy of the team that they like to have the release and announcement of the game as close to each other as possible. So there's a lot of if, ands, or buts up in the air, but right now, in my honest opinion, I think this is the year we finally see what Bethesda Game Studios has been working on. And I think this year will be a lot better than E3 2017. I think it's very hard to get lower than that. And let me just say in advance that if it somehow gets worse than this, or we don't see anything surprising this year, which I think is just me overreacting at this point, considering the fact that all the other studios have worked on something in recent history where the most breathing room has come from Bethesda Game Studios and id. But if they don't show up, and if we get absolutely nothing and it's another bust show, I'm gonna be really disappointed. But regardless, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this in the comments down below. What do you think we're going to see at E3 2018 from Bethesda? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below, so fire away. Other than that, follow me on Twitter, like me on Facebook. Those links are in the description down below, along with my Patreon. Do consider supporting that as it fuels all the content we create here. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.